for that introduction. It makes it sound wow. I hope I can live up to that on the presentation. I think that you will see a lot of the stories that you don't hear about. Some of them you have heard. As you said, I'm living here. And from October 7th, from the moment that Hamas attacked, from the moment that we saw Hamas in Israel's communities, I started a WhatsApp group for my family and friends, and it has cascaded through my network to 8 countries, but my network is small. And right away I also realized that the Jewish communities weren't really hearing the news of what's going on here, and like you said, Rabbi, everyone is connected. So I started these sessions. What I'm going to do is I have a presentation. I want to take you through a little bit of what's been happening in Israel since the Black Sabbath. And when I'm done the presentation, I'm happy to take, questions on whatever, you'd like to hear more about. There is one thing that I am very adamant about, and I do not speak about politics. So we're going to steer clear of politics. And I'll share the presentation and I'll take you into what it's like to be living here, into life here in Israel. I also, before I start the presentation, I do want to just say thank you very much to all of you for coming on Zoom. In Israel, right away, Zoom became our mode of communication. In the first week since October 7th, nobody was working. And slowly, as people started to get back to work or get back to figuring out what comes next, Zoom has become a very important part. All the schools were closed. And my kids, were in Zoom school. So for me, Zoom is very natural. For you, I know that you don't need to be on Zoom anymore. So thank you very much for Zooming with me this evening, your time. So the stories of resilience come about very naturally in Israel, and it's really because there is no option. We Israelis sort of just have to take the next step, have to live through this in some way. And every day in Israel, the news is 24/7. On a regular Israeli day, the news is 24/7. We're all plugged in. And these are the headlines from November 28th of what was going on in Israel. Again, I'm the 29th already, but this is November 28th. Day 53, this is how Israelis speak now. It's as if a new calendar has begun. And this is how we speak. What day is it since October 7th? The latest round of hostages who arrived back in Israel always takes, the top headline. But then there's a lot of reports starting to come out about what the hostages have gone through. And for a lot of the kids, they are whispering right now. It's not just 1 or 2 kids, but they're whispering. They were basically taught not to speak in captivity, and they're all whispering if they're speaking at all. There's also one child hostage who hasn't spoken yet. Yesterday, there was an attack by Hamas. And this is something that Israelis are used to. Usually when there's a ceasefire, don't forget, October 7th was part of a ceasefire. And Hamas will always attack during these ceasefires. And again, there was an attack yesterday, and this is something that we're constantly fearful for. We hear a headline that the hostages are going to be released, but then Hamas will release something like, "Oh, Israel's not doing this," or "We don't feel like this," or it's a nail-biting experience whether or not each round of hostages are actually going to be released. And I just wanted to show you one other thing that is not from today, but it has become very, and that's the picture in the bottom left of your screen. And you can see sort of the words changing. You don't have to read Hebrew for it. But this is what our TV looks like when we're watching the news. All those things that are coming up are where the rocket attacks were fighting. This is the information, secure room or a safe room or a bomb shelter. And right at the beginning, before we officially started this chat, I mentioned that I am in Tel Aviv, and if there's an incoming warning, I do have to leave the Zoom. I have to go to a safe room. I don't have a safe room in my apartment. And then I would come back to the Zoom. So this is something that's very much a part of our day-to-day. And this is a human flag chain that has also become a symbol of this war since October 7th. And these chains have a dual meaning now. When the hostages started to come back, people started to line the streets as a human flag chain, and it was really nice to see this gesture. And the reason it was really nice, this is Danielle Aloni coming back to Yavne, this video here. And again, it's something that's repeated every time the hostages come back. People go out to the streets and line the street to welcome them back. And for me, it was amazing to see it the first time this happened, because this is usually what the human chain has looked like. And this is a human chain that I've taken part in a number of times. In my neighborhood, we've had 7. And initially, the reason these chains were created was it was the last farewell for somebody from the neighborhood who had died in the line of action. And this is something that we were introduced to in the first week of the attack after the massacre. One of my daughter's friends had been killed in the line of action. He was 19. And these human chains are formed from the family's home to the military cemetery. And it can be 1.5 miles long. And the neighborhood is asked to come out, and the schools and the alumni and the teachers all come out. And again, there have been 7 of these in our neighborhood. And it's something that's very heartbreaking, but also empowering at the same time. So seeing that this is how the hostages were greeted was a way of changing this gesture also for something positive. And this is something that has run on social media. There is no one who did not know someone. And Rabbi, you mentioned that right at the beginning, where, yeah, this is something that has touched everyone. It doesn't matter if you're in La Jolla, it doesn't matter if you're somewhere else in the States, it doesn't matter that I'm in Tel Aviv. This is something that impacted everyone. We all know someone who was affected personally by what happened on October 7th. And just to give you a little picture how it hit my family. So my daughter, she's 16. She is in a volleyball club, and the player, one of the players was had just started his army duty, 19 years old, and he was killed on the first day in his tank. One of the coaches from the volleyball club was kidnapped with her son, and they just returned a couple days ago. So that was very exciting. And our neighbor's brother was killed at the Nova Music Festival. And my friends all have sons and spouses in the army and reserves. And it's just something where every time you talk to someone in Israel, every time you want to do something, even the other day I had to go to an appointment, the first thing you do is just check, are you okay? And the person that I had to meet the other day had just come back from 47 days in the reserve duty. So it's just, people are affected, personally affected here in Israel, but also in the Jewish community. And this is something that in Israel, these awareness campaigns, I know that they're all over the US, and you know, there's a lot of news about people ripping down signs, not ripping down signs. In Israel, these awareness campaigns are everywhere, and obviously people are not ripping them down. The one that you're looking at here is from outside the Tel Aviv Museum of Art, and that has actually become known as Hostages and Missing Square. But the reason that I wanted to show you this is that everyone in Israel knows that it was just a matter of luck that it was not them, because it could have been any of us. This country is small. It happened to be the people who were attacked, but it could have been any of us. So I want to go back to October 7th, what it was like to be here. And you're looking at my WhatsApp messages to my family. Hamas and Israel have been coupled in the news before. People have heard it. And this was one of the problems of trying to explain what was different here. Even to my family, you've heard Hamas, Israel, Israel, Hamas. It's come up before, it's not new. But what we realized was this is not a flare-up. This is something much more than a flare-up. And getting that news out and trying to explain what is actually going on was something really difficult at the beginning. We were woken up at 6:30 on a Saturday morning, Simchat Torah. Usually when there's a rocket siren, warning of incoming rockets on Tel Aviv, there's something the day before. And here it was a complete surprise. And we just started to watch the news and we could not believe what was going on. I mean, Hamas, you could see the Hamas, you could hear the reports from people in the communities just saying, you know, Hamas has taken over our communities. And if you want to take a picture or write down this map, this is one of the initiatives that came out from the attacks, and it's a memorial, sort of a piece of history of what happened. Everyone saw on the news that tractor going through the border, but Israel wasn't breached in one place, its border. It was breached 29 times, and that's something that a lot of people don't know. So there were 29 breaches along the border, and it was a simultaneous massacre. And what this map does is it really brings you into what happened. It's an interactive map. You can go through and see what happened and why it was such a horrific surprise. And something else that didn't really come out was how long it took for people to be rescued. Some people were hiding for over 24 hours in their houses or in the bushes or in their bomb shelters. And, you know, there's been a lot of talk about, well, why did it take the army so long? Well, one of the things that you have to remember is Hamas actually took over the communities. So when the army did come, they had to wrest control back of the community and then go in to save. And of course, there'll be, you know, there'll be a number of things that have to be looked. Why did it take so long? But it's important to remember that a lot of people weren't saved until October 8th. And this is one of the first initiatives that came about without even knowing that it was an initiative. So, you know, October 7th, we're watching TV and we can't believe what's going on. And the army and the police are flooded with calls. And so what happens is on the news, the anchors started to get phone calls to the anchors live on TV. Please send someone, you know, we're stuck in our community. We really need help to get out. And while we're watching the news and can't believe it, there's also a very strong tech community in Israel, and they're watching the news as well. And 60 of them sort of band together on a WhatsApp and they create a web tool. And you don't have to read Hebrew to know what to do when you see that web tool. And they created this live web tool in real time where if someone needed help, all they had to do was push that red button. And we heard about this because our friend's stepson was stuck in a South community by himself. And when you press this red button, the geolocation of where you are would be sent to these tech guys all over, you know, central Israel. And they would work with the army together to get people out. And in the first 2 days, they rescued over 600 people from the communities in the South, including our friend's stepson. And another thing that was sort of a knee-jerk reaction, you know, Israel's very well known for its humanitarian aid. It will go to earthquake sites, it will go to hurricane sites. And in this case, it was a local need. And the moment the numbers started to come out, the hospitals realized they needed blood. And on the first day, on October 7th, they put out a call for blood. And remember, it was a Saturday and it was Simchat Torah. And within an hour, they put out a call to stop coming. They begged Israelis to stop coming. And that's because in that first hour, hundreds of people from all walks of Israeli society, from the Arab Christian community, the Arab Muslim community, the Druze community, the Jewish community, the religious community, again, Shabbat and Simchat Torah, the secular community, everyone wanted to help and everyone came out to the hospitals. And there were lines of 6 hours long. And anyone who's been to Israel knows Israelis are not good at lines. And yet they were able to, everyone waited there 6 hours. That's me on the right giving blood. I had to wait 3 weeks until I could get a spot in order to give blood. And this is something that is ongoing, really the whole community coming out to continuously donate blood. And then there were these initiatives that popped up, these grassroots initiatives, really taking care of everything. One of the things that happened, not only about the people who were attacked, but the communities along the border in the south and north were evacuated. So there are currently 260,000 displaced Israelis in Israel. So these pop-ups came, this one is from Tel Aviv, hygiene products, clothing, baby gear, basically whatever you need. These sort of groups got together, and this is these photos are from when I went to go volunteer. And just to volunteer, you have to take a number, wait in line, just to volunteer to pack boxes or to empty boxes. And then it's always about sort of working on your feet. And one of the things that popped up was there aren't enough showers in the field for the army, for the soldiers. So people made their own showers on the back of pickup trucks and drove down into the desert to help give soldiers hot showers, laundry for soldiers. The reserves, there were 360,000 people called up. So anyone who could, families would pick up laundry, wash it, dry it, fold it, bring it back to the soldiers. And there was an app made for the displaced Israelis who needed a house or needed a place. You could type in where you wanted to go. I have a friend who gave up her house and she went to go live with her parents. And people really just came to try and to get together. And there's this unity here of just trying to get together and help one another. And then another initiative that came up was the Tech War Room. And this was also created from the Israeli tech community. It's not a government initiative, it's a private initiative. It's 150 tech people, the top tech people in the tech community. And they came together to help figure out what happened to the missing people. In addition to the people that were murdered and the people who were kidnapped, there were a lot of people who were missing. And this community used tech to figure out where they are, or whether they're kidnapped, whether they've been murdered, and where they could be. And it's one of the reasons that Shani Gabai, who you can see at the bottom right, it's one of the reasons that the families are still sitting Shiva from October 7th. So Shani was missing all this time. Her family is only getting up from Shiva tomorrow. And we're talking about October 7th. And then the initiatives were really just every imaginable thing that you would need. People came together in order to find a response. 360,000 reservists are called up, and the Army realizes not all the uniforms have what they need. So they called on the design schools in Israel and asked them to help sew on new pockets and new straps. And Bezalel and Shankar came. They had 460 people working around the clock, volunteering to just sew on pockets and straps so that the reservists would have what they need. And then, so the southern communities are where Israel's amazing produce mainly comes from, as well as from the Galilee. Also, the communities were asked to evacuate there. So what happens now is Israelis have gone back to really being pioneers and tilling the land. And a lot of schools and a lot of private individuals go and help the farmers in all the farms throughout Israel. A lot of the foreign workers have left, understandably. So they need help with the produce, picking and packing into the boxes. And then to sell the produce, these sort of farmers markets have popped up. And the one you're seeing on your screen is the first farmers market in Tel Aviv that brought the produce from the southern communities, and they put it underground because at the time there were still rockets being sent on Tel Aviv, and this was a way of keeping it safe for people, that the farmers market was put underground in a parking lot. Thousands of people came to that pop-up, and every day now you can just see throughout the country these pop-up farmers markets, or as you see the photo on the right, a nursery from the southern communities came and converted a restaurant into a nursery for the day so that people can come and donate, but also buy from citizens who really need help, from civilians who need help. And this is one of the latest initiatives, service dogs helping the soldiers and helping people wounded in the attacks, and helping some of the freed hostages really just try and ward off PTSD. This entire country has PTSD. And, you know, my friends who are psychologists who have been volunteering with the people who survived the attack, they themselves say, we need a psychologist in order to get through this. And there's also some humor, because Israelis really, in order to live through the stress here, humor is very important. And usually the humor will pop up right away. In this case, it took 6 days for the first jokes to come out. You can see soldiers with, you know, feminine hygiene products or baby diapers where the boxes were just sent to the wrong unit. But, you know, to say thank you, they still took a photo and put it on social media. And there's nothing more Israeli than a little girl asking the soldiers to marry her aunt. And there have been a number of these pictures sent out, and people always put it on social media and try and set up, you know, a soldier with someone who's looking for a husband. And there have been army weddings. A lot of weddings were canceled, so they had their weddings on base during reserve duty or at one of the local national parks beside the base. And street art is really where you can get a feel of what's being said on the street. And these are some pictures from South Tel Aviv from about 10 days ago. So before the hostages started to come back, calling on the, you know, to free the children. Some of the graffiti makes the soldiers into superheroes, and some graffiti was even saying, you know, looking towards the future, can there be peace? And this is, again, like I said, a couple slides back, there are a lot of awareness campaigns. This is just a regular office in the high-tech area. And I just wanted to show you what it looks like to walk into any office in Israel. There's always a little corner demanding the hostage release, pictures of the kidnapped. This is just a regular high-tech office that I happen to consult in. And then there are these awareness campaigns, and they're all over Tel Aviv. And so this one is at the Hostages and Missing Square. Outside the Tel Aviv Museum of Art, there's the wall with the hostages, and actually they've started to write, "I've come back" on some of the pictures. There's the chair exhibit. Outside of Habima, you can see the empty beds, which was created by the community to show that the people left behind aren't sleeping. And like you mentioned, Rabbi, people have lost sleep. No one's sleeping until the hostages are back. And the Empty Beds campaign also showing who hasn't slept in a bed. One of the stories that came out of the hostages who returned is that they have all stayed in the clothes that they were kidnapped in since October 7th, and no one was allowed to have a shower in captivity. And then there are these awareness campaigns at Dizengoff. And what's interesting about the Dizengoff Square campaigns is there are some organized campaigns, but there's a lot of individuals who come and write notes, and it's kind of like graffiti, one on top of the other, people putting pictures and candles and signs just calling for the release of their loved ones. And a lot of people ask me, well, what's the Arab voice like? And this is something that really was something that people thought about right at the beginning. What are the Israeli Arabs gonna say? What's their voice? And just like in the Jewish community, where there's different voices in the Arab community as well. Lucia Harish, an Arab Israeli TV journalist, she's very vocal about standing on the side of Israel. The Druze community, so that picture at the top there, they closed all the restaurants on October 7th, and then they reopened them only for the soldiers. Professor Muna Maroon and Bassam Eid, two Arabs who have written opinion pieces in Newsweek about the need to separate Palestinians from Hamas. Mohammed Kabia is a Bedouin who speaks a lot on the press. And on your right, you can see Yosef Haddad, an Arab Christian. He was speaking in Arabic last night at a rally calling on for the release of the Viva's family. But I think if you look at the guy in the middle there with the bikes, he's actually just your average guy. And the day that he heard what happened, he owns a bike shop. And he was like, you know what? I want to donate bikes to the kids that just lost everything. And one of the families, to say thank you, took his photo and put it up on social media. And the next day, his shop was firebombed by someone in his community. And so the voices are different. Some people are okay with Israel, and other people have different voices. And again, this is just like you'll find in the Jewish community. There are different voices on what has happened. And I just want to show you a few of the rebuilding of and the resilience that you can really see. So Kibbutz Be'eri was one of the hardest hit in the massacres. But 1 week after the massacres, they reopened their printing press. And it wasn't so much about going back to work, but more about showing we're here to stay. We're not going anywhere. And so they reopened the printing press right away. And in Kfar Aza, they wanted to reopen their pub, not because they wanted people to come and celebrate, but because that's where the community always met. And that was really an important part of the community. And so they reopened the pub, but they didn't open it in the kibbutz. They actually brought it to the area where the community is staying at the moment, because they are displaced from their community. And these are stories that we see every day of people who survived the attack and are leaving the hospital ward for rehabilitation, and they have songs and musicians follow them, and the doctors and nurses follow them from the ward to rehabilitation. And this is something that happens in every Israeli war. The kids are named after places. And in this case, these are some of the babies who have been named in honor of the kibbutzim that were most affected. Be'eri, Oz, Erez, Nir, and Nova. Those are the names at the moment that are being used to commemorate, but also as a resilience to say we're still here and we're going forward. And this is my day-to-day. So it's a mix of everything. We've started to go back to work, but every place that you work in, you need to be careful how you open the conversation. There's no need to ask how you are. No one's okay. So you nod, you don't really ask how are you. And I've been giving these Zoom sessions to really try and bring in the communities to understand a bit more about what's going on. That photo on the right with the two red circles, that was taken by my 16-year-old son on his first day back at school. On the way back, there was a siren and he had to duck for cover. And when he came out, he saw, um, the remnants of the interceptions by the Iron Dome. The bottom circle is right over my building, and and just asking people to speak up. Part of a new initiative called Taking a Stand, and this is what my day is like. It's a little bit of this and a little bit of that, and we're all still trying to figure out what comes next. And although, for the last couple of days there's been a lull, this is what has been happening for 7 weeks, where every night rocket attacks on Tel Aviv. The middle photo there is my apartment building's communal safe room. It's not a place that you want to go to unless you have to. We prefer to go to the stairwell. Those are my kids on the stairs there, trying to take safety and be in a safe spot until the interceptions finish. And again, everyone in Israel is just calling for the hostages to be released. And we're also waiting for Tel Aviv to show what Tel Aviv can be and go back to a Tel Aviv where, you guys can come visit. Those two photos on the right are a new boardwalk that was just opened in Tel Aviv, connecting the northern beaches. The middle photo is from Shuk Carmel on Friday. And Tel Aviv is a very lively city on a regular sort of day, and we're looking forward to it going back to that. And if there's one message, that I can share, and that is to speak up. And you don't have to go on social media against the trolls, but anyone that you speak to, just talk about what's going on. Obviously, you guys are feeling it too with the anti-Semitism, which has really blown off the charts. But people have to know, and there's no way that we can stay as a silent majority. So that's a little bit about what's been happening in Israel and Tel Aviv specifically. And if anyone, has any